Light and darkness are core to the fiction of Destiny. They provide its characters with power to change one's fate and create a sense of meaning. During the 10-year Light and Darkness Saga, the contrast between the two elemental forces has fueled every conflict and motivated factions to mobilize across the galaxy. Today, I will explore the central theme of the Light and Darkness Saga, Destiny's duality of light and darkness. Destiny begins with a description of the source of light, the Traveler.
We called it the Traveler, and its arrival changed us forever. Great cities were built on Mars and Venus. Mercury became a garden world. Human lifespan tripled. It was a time of miracles. We stared out at the galaxy and knew that it was our destiny to walk in the light of other stars. But the Traveler had an enemy, a darkness which had hunted it for eons across the black gulfs of space. Centuries after our golden age began, this darkness found us. And that was the end of everything. But it was also a beginning.
The opening words of Destiny set the stage for the conflict's central dualism, the Traveler and the Darkness. Interestingly, players would learn of the Darkness's existence before even hearing of the very thing it was defined in opposition to, the Traveler's light. This monologue introduces several key concepts to the Light and Darkness Saga: the Traveler, the golden age it gifted humanity, and the collapse brought upon by the darkness arriving to the solar system. All of these concepts are dual in nature, light in opposition to darkness, and arise before the fall of humanity. The darkness is shrouded in mystery throughout the early years of the Light and Darkness Saga, but one thing is clear: it tried to take away the Traveler's gifts. This symmetry will be expanded upon as the saga progresses, but first we need to explore the key concepts relating to light and darkness. Subsequent dialogue from the speaker explains the connection between the Traveler and its envoys, guardians and ghosts.
In its dying breath, the Traveler created the ghosts to seek out those who can wield its light as a weapon. Guardians to protect us and do what the Traveler itself no longer can.
Throughout the saga, every player controls a guardian on their journey of discovery, mastering the light and becoming legend by defeating powerful foes throughout the Sol system. The player controls a blank slate character named simply the Guardian, whose companion is simply named Ghost. They serve as part of an organization of guardians called the Vanguard, who protect the remaining mortal lightless humans from the forces of darkness which inhabit the solar system. The Guardian is integral to every conflict across the saga, serving as the tip of the Vanguard's spear. They're a single person, accomplishing feats greater than an entire army across the saga. While the Guardian is an empty vessel designed for the player to project their feelings upon, Ghost has a developed personality, serving as a foil and guiding light for each player on their journey. Ghosts are primarily guides, but their nature and connection to the Traveler is mostly mysterious. In a lore entry from Forsaken, an unpaired ghost describes the birth of their kind that serves as the end to the collapse. I remember the moment we were born. There was pain and loss and a feeling of falling. Was this the end? The shadows gathered, colored bruised purple and gray in our fading consciousness. Our shell cracked and splintered. Parts of us were lost or carried away. We felt those wounds, jagged and sharp. We could feel them still, attached by a gossamer thin strand of understanding. We felt a garden with no blooms, a valley shrouded in gloom. We felt ourselves dying. We didn't want to go. Then there I was, separated from the whole. I could feel it shrink, slip back into itself, dim and unseeing. I knew it was waiting, resting, watching, considering, and I knew what I needed to do. Somewhere in this wide, amazing galaxy, there was a person. They were quiet and dead, like we had been, but I could bring them back. I could share what was inside of me, this glorious warmth and life and breath and being. Together, that person and I would do what we, the we before me, could not. I wrapped the spark that was me in metal and glass, a tiny bit of something that reminded me of the home we had shared. Then I set out to find my person. There were so many people. I touched each one, looking for something? A fragment of ember under the ash? I didn't find it. I know now that there is one person, only one, that is mine. I have seen others of my kind, the other pieces that were once us. Their search is over. They are complete, stronger, braver because they found their counterpart. I am alone. I know that you are still out there, that you're waiting for me. What we can glean from this text is that prior to creating ghosts, the traveler held a kind of collective consciousness that was dying due to the violence of the collapse. That collective became fractured as it used its light to split off pieces and form conscious ghosts. The first thing each ghost knew after being split from that great dying collective was their purpose. There was a person out in the galaxy who needed guidance and who could share in the awesome power of the traveler's light. That person was destined to become half of a whole, a guardian companion to the traveler's ghost. These guardians would need to be resurrected from the dead, as they had already died at a previous point, most during the collapse, but others during the events before or afterwards. Some ghosts never find their guardians throughout the whole saga, while others quickly find their other half. The point is that both ghosts and guardians are undead. They are living a second life after the being that they used to be died. They represent new beginnings. It's interesting that the traveler is described as a collective, a we before the me of each ghost. This makes the traveler a reflection of its enemy, the witness, whom we will discuss later. Destiny 1's grimoire gives us a more specific description of a guardian's relationship with the light as a supernatural force. Only guardians have the gift of the traveler's light, the ability to channel its energies to project vast power into the world. While these abilities rise from within, guardians master their power in different ways. It may seem contradictory to say that guardians are the only ones with the gift of light, knowing the traveler visited many species before humanity and created light-based miracles. The terminology around the use of the light is somewhat confusing and doesn't quite clarify this point, but there's a difference between using a machine to channel the traveler's light, like the machines of the Elixni splicers, and calling on it in a pure and unadulterated form like guardians can. Guardians are the only people capable of channeling the full force of light's supernatural nature, and able to be resurrected from the dead by the traveler's ghosts. This is why they're called light bearers. They can literally bear the full force of the traveler's light. Each subclass ability players wield in Destiny is a different manifestation of the light. Each class understands the light in a slightly different way, which is why different classes possess different abilities. Guardians are part of the rare few able to wield paracausal abilities to manipulate the world around them. Light and darkness are said to be paracausal, para meaning beyond, and causal meaning related to cause and effect. This tells us that light and darkness have power that allows them to break the chain of cause and effect, violating the laws of physics. This connects to the famous phrase from the Vault of Glass, which has been referenced repeatedly since: "Guardians make their own fate." Guardians wield paracausal forces, which allow them to break free from the deterministic physics of the Destiny universe and create their own future. The Books of Sorrow offer the first clear definition of a paracausal force in the Destiny universe. In their desperation, the Ammonite have begun using paracausal weapons. Suffice to say that some powers in this universe are superordinate to mere material physics. The source of these weapons is the Traveler, the sky's bait star. Their effect is subtle but devastating, but you are armed to respond in kind. We will not give you the deep, King Aurix. That power is for us, your gods, but we will teach you to call upon that force with signs and rituals. Small minds might call it magic. You are no longer bound by causal closure. This quote gives us a fantastic starting point to understand the light and darkness as paracausal forces. Light and darkness are the human names for these concepts, while the Hive, who wrote the Books of Sorrow, call them the sky and the deep. These are just different names for the same concept, like the Elixni calling the Traveler the Great Machine, or the Witness's precursors calling it the Gardener. This quote also gives us a useful shorthand for understanding a paracausal force, the Destiny universe's version of magic. Humanity divides the light into three aspects: void, solar, and arc. Void is the power of vacuum, the fields and space that underlie reality. It uses those fields to bend the very space that makes up the universe, to create miniature black holes or explosions of matter. Solar uses chemical reactions that release energy to create immense fires. It creates miniature suns, the power of fusion releasing light and heat and burning everything that comes close. Arc uses fundamental forces that carry charge to move electrons, creating electric charge and lightning. These magical powers are physical and create energetic chaos where none existed previously, violating conservation of energy and charge. It's natural for characters to see magical powers and look for meaning within them. Elixni Houseslate scribe Ido reviews the different cultural interpretations from each alien species who's encountered the Traveler's light. This is what I've been pondering. It seems that the human view of light is based on the creation of something from nothing, while the Elixni view of light is based in the transformation of one thing into a different thing. The two overlap more frequently than not. Take for instance Mars. Did the Traveler itself create the oxygen humans need to breathe, or did it transform carbon dioxide from the atmosphere as it was? Does the difference ultimately matter? An additional thought. The idea of the Traveler as gardener seems to have gained traction among the humans of the Tower and the city. It is of interest to those who have read the unveiling texts especially. Gardening is in its own way transformative. A gardener, 4 hands in rich earth, coaxes something forward that had once only existed as a possibility. The seed, given the right resources, becomes a tree, with the core of the seed remaining at the heart of the new growth. I find the image particularly compelling. The Elixni of Reese thought of the Traveler as a great machine, and while it gave them gardens, that most vital thing it did was to allow ether to flow like water, free and plentiful. Ether, we know, does not come from nothing. The machine takes that which it is given and makes of it something else. Servitors still do this today. They require something from which to create ether. We know this intimately, inescapably. I think neither of us is right. I think neither of us is wrong. I think, as we walk into the future together, it is beyond vital to preserve the many facets of light seen through our many eyes. Machine and gardener and traveler all. Each culture looks upon the Traveler and sees something different. A traveler, the sky, a great machine, or a gardener. Each interpretation of the light reveals more about those interpreting it than the light itself. They are all right, and they are all wrong, because one culture cannot have a monopoly on the truth, the essence of something. The Traveler is a cosmic mirror, a silent god that people are able to reflect their hopes for the future onto and work to better themselves. The light is multifaceted because the cultures who use it find a variety of uses for it, like guardians who divide it into multiple aspects. light. It's a tool, the use of which has many forms because each culture who uses it has a variety of needs. The darkness also has three aspects: stasis, strand, and egregore, creating a symmetry with the light. In Lightfall, Osiris describes the difference between light and darkness while trying to understand strand.
At its root, the Traveler is a terraformer, a gardener. It generates natural life, physical transformation at a molecular scale across whole planets. This should have been our first hint. The domain of the light is the domain of the physical. The darkness then is revealed in many facets. Dreams and nightmares, emotions, pain, memory. The nature of Strand confirms this line of thinking. Darkness is something entirely apart from light. A paracausal union, conjoining intangible conscious realities, discursively linking to—
You're talking about the River of Souls.
River?
Yeah, it's a story we tell kids on Neptune.
A nursery rhyme.
Sort of. Since before history, there's been this raging river. In the story, some try to divert the river, others try to build a dam, but nothing stops it. Lots of people have believed that we either sink in the water or learn to swim.
Don't we?
See, that's the real wild part. We are the river.
And empowered by it, it would seem.
The light connects to physical reality, while the darkness connects to memory. The River of Souls is a metaphor for the darkness. The darkness is a paracausal force that serves as a network or field, underlying physical reality that connects strongly to consciousness and memory of both animate and inanimate objects. Stasis is about order. It has the ability to reduce entropy, to take a chaotic and disordered system and reorder it, defying the laws of physics. Stasis breaks the second law of thermodynamics, which states that order cannot spontaneously appear from disorder. It does this via time dilation, changing the reference frame of the object, in essence turning back time to a more orderly state in the past, making use of the object's memories. Stasis manifests as crystals of ice, orderly and controlled, the opposite of the chaos and entropy of light. Strand manifests as strings, a cosmic web of connections between all objects connected via strands. This paracausal force allows wielders to manipulate those connections, drawing them closer together or pulling them apart. Egregore is not pure darkness like stasis or strand. It's a living fungus that has a strong connection to the darkness. Egregore gives those who come into contact with it psychic visions and dark impressions. Egregore is attuned to the darkness's equivalent of the Traveler, the Veil, and appears where it has previously influenced, as a kind of marker of the darkness's influence. The Veil also has the ability to create nightmares as shown by Nezarek's use of it, which is why Egregore is associated with echoes of past torment. Unveiling hints that the Destiny universe might be a simulation built atop a computational structure, similar to Cellular Automata, a zero-player game created by a gardener and a winnower. The universe is created in an argument between them over the rules of the game, and they write themselves into the rules to change the outcome. This relates to a city-age interpretation about the nature of the darkness. The monist position, or the deflationary position, considers the darkness as a technologically sophisticated force, perhaps a post-singularity intelligence. Adherents invoke information theory, or contend that the universe is a simulation, allowing advanced intelligence to gain weakly acausal powers by bending the rules. The monist position sees the darkness as an advanced artificial intelligence that has the ability to bend the laws of reality, to violate causality and create paracausal effects. Under this view, the gardener and winnower, the metaphors for or perhaps creators of light and darkness in Unveiling, are intelligences that exist within the code, becoming sentient in the margins of the simulation as eldritch beings that warp the laws of physics to their own ends. In Unveiling, the initial purpose of the light as a paracausal force is to prevent a static outcome, the final shape, which the winnower seeks to reassert via the darkness, creating the cosmic battle between light and darkness. Like many elemental magic systems in fiction, the light and darkness each have been co-opted for dogmatic moral philosophies. The first of these ideas introduced to the player is what I call the Dogma of Light. The Dogma of Light is not a single philosophy, but rather a broad set of ideas held by guardians and other inhabitants of their last city, early in Destiny's story. The common theme is that the darkness is defined in opposition to the light. The light, which guardians control, is seen as moral, while the darkness is seen as immoral. This serves as the thesis of the early narrative. The Grimoire card for the darkness explains. The speaker tells of a cosmic force that swept over us and caused the collapse. Legend calls it the darkness, the traveler's ancient enemy, which hunted it across space. All we have left are questions. Centuries of debate gave birth to competing arguments on the nature of the darkness and the collapse. The Pujari position describes the darkness as a force with both physical and moral presence, an actualization of evil. Pujari art depicts the darkness as a great storm, or as a change in conduct, a corruption that emerged from within and poisoned the Golden Age. Saint 14's position argues that the darkness was an invading armada, an alien force of incredible but tangible power. Some adherents believe that this armada sprang from species rejected or discarded by the traveler for their sins. Ulan Tan's thesis considers the darkness a necessary symmetry to the traveler in a cosmic balance. In this view, the traveler's goodness led it to sacrifice for others, and it is up to us to return this goodness by healing the traveler. The acataleptic cause claims that we are intrinsically unable to understand the darkness. In many respects, this belief parallels the Praxic Creed, which suggests that we should stop worrying about the nature of the darkness and focus on resisting and defeating it. All of these positions minus the symmetry, Ulan Tan's thesis, consider the darkness as a force that is fundamentally opposed to the light, and whose defeat must be pursued by guardians. The Pujari position is the most extreme form of this idea, which believes the darkness itself is intrinsically evil. The Praxic Creed is similar but doesn't care about darkness's nature, merely its destruction. Prior to Beyond Light, the vanguard and government of the last city initially doesn't take any of these positions explicitly, but also believes guardians need to protect the city from darkness and take positive action by destroying the darkness before it can threaten humanity again. I define the Dogma of Light as the combination of these ideas, in opposition to Ulan Tan's thesis of symmetry. The controversial ideas of Ulan Tan help us understand the general mood of humanity towards the darkness at the beginning of the Light and Darkness Saga, which helps us understand the change that occurs during the story. An in-universe text about Ulan Tan explains, before the invention of the doctrine of symmetry, the prevailing framework for talking about the darkness was a moral one. Dark Age scholars directly mapped the paracausal forces to our pre-existing moral codes. That is to say, they thought that light equals good and darkness equals evil. For them, the connection was innate. This was a natural assumption, given how the darkness had raised the known worlds, and how the traveler had saved humanity from destruction. However, once the dust from the collapse settled, it became possible for City Age scholars to broaden their historical gazes. For the first time, they studied the darkness from a holistic perspective rather than a moral one. Most of these proto-symmetrists hedged their theses by stating, as Mornigan put it in Darkness Enlightened, though it may be true that the darkness is a necessary evil, we may countenance its existence by acknowledging that it gives way at all times to the force of good. For wherever the light shines, the darkness recedes before it. This quote contextualizes the morality of the early Destiny story as a natural reaction to the Golden Age and subsequent collapse. If the Traveler gave humanity a Golden Age via its light, the light must be good. And if the darkness destroyed humanity's Golden Age, then surely it must be a force of evil, a natural assumption created by the trauma of human civilization expanding rapidly then being brutally destroyed by a mysterious enemy. These two ideas combined to form the basis of the doctrine that would become the Dogma of Light. The text continues. It was in this intellectual space that Ulan Tan first proposed the doctrine of symmetry. His hypothesis discarded the Dark Age premise that the darkness and light were moral in nature. Instead, he postulated that our moral understanding of light and darkness were subjective experiences of absolute forces. If one accepts that the concepts of light or darkness and good or evil are not perfectly aligned, then there must necessarily exist liminal spaces where light equals evil and darkness equals good. Ulan Tan's symmetry questions the dogma of light, instead favoring moral relativism, the idea that the universe does not possess innate morality, and all moral systems are constructed by cultures in reaction to the universe, rather than derived natural laws. Under this framework, all moral systems are relative, meaning they are constructed from a unique cultural perspective, rather than derived from a universal morality. Adherents of universal morality believe that the universe itself possesses natural laws of morality that people could divine by studying it. Moreover, they would believe that different cultures possess different moral systems because they have interpreted universal morality imperfectly. Personally, I am a moral relativist, so I am biased towards philosophies that follow that framework. The Pujari position endorses universal morality because it ascribes morality to what in the Destiny universe are natural forces, the light and darkness. Ulan Tan's symmetry claims this posture is arrogant, which naturally causes tension between him and the mainstream political order of his time. The text explains. He, Ulan Tan, became persona non grata with the publication of a pamphlet entitled Finding Light in the Darkness. The most provocative ideas within the pamphlet were as follows. Light cannot exist without darkness. They are a bonded pair. They beget each other in eternal symmetry. They are as one. If we claim knowledge from Sister Light, then we must also claim knowledge from Brother Dark. The Traveler shares only half of life. Darkness provides the rest. We must know the darkness to know ourselves. We must balance or perish. Ulan Tan believes that the dogma of light is small-minded and that there is knowledge to be gained from the darkness that humanity is unnecessarily avoiding because of the taboo surrounding darkness caused by the collapse. Ulan Tan wanted people to question the dogma of light and moderate their positions to allow for benefit to be gained from studying the darkness. He feared if humanity was too afraid to gain knowledge from the darkness, that they would be wiped out by those who understood those truths. Ulan Tan also believed that the light was inherently bonded to the darkness, and that you couldn't have one paracausal force without the other. Whether light could exist without darkness is still unclear, but as we will see, the pair certainly appears to be bonded. Another lore entry grounds this view via a thought experiment. To have light, we must have dark. This is the symmetry of the universe. Controversial warlock Ulan Tan. I propose a simple experiment. Look around. You see light. You see darkness. There could not be one without the other. They are two sides of the same coin. If it is true for these Newtonian echoes, why would it not be true of the purest paracausal forms? Therefore, I conclude, the reason you persecute me is not because of the symmetry. It's because of the truth beyond this truth, the truth which you most dread. If we could destroy darkness but we had to give up our light to do so, how many of us would make that trade? Ulan Tan believes that the reason his symmetry is unpopular to the point of persecution is that it challenges the most commonly held desire to destroy the darkness completely. The inhabitants of the last city during Tan's time wanted to have light without darkness, but Ulan Tan thinks this is impossible. If they had to give up the light, most would not destroy the darkness to do so, because the light creates miracles, resurrecting people from the dead, terraforming entire planets, darkness and creating humanity's golden age. A future without light and darkness would be the future of the real world, devoid of the fantasy of destiny. The fragile society of the City Age might not survive without the light amidst numerous alien threats, so destroying the darkness would not be worth it if it required sacrificing the light. This idea connects Ulan Tan to Jacob Boehme, a 17th century Protestant Reformation philosopher referenced in Unveiling. In Unveiling, the Winnower uses Jacob Boehme as a reference point for light and darkness, because his real-life Protestant cosmology saw moral light and darkness as symmetrical and unable to exist without each other. I unpack Jacob Boehme and Unveiling more in my Final Shape analysis, but the short version is that Boehme's light is his conception of Christian heaven, while Boehme's darkness is his conception of Christian hell. He saw darkness as necessary to contrast the light, and was persecuted by his contemporaries for his beliefs. As a character, Ulan Tan is likely inspired by Boehme, as his story is very similar, just in terms of destiny's paracausal light and darkness, rather than Boehme's moral light and darkness. The in-universe text about Ulan Tan's history echoes this idea. The idea of embracing darkness, even to learn from it, was the final provocation, one that the Vanguard could not let stand. Though authorities throughout the system attempted to discredit Ulan Tan, essentially forcing him into hermitage for the later half of his life, it speaks to the persuasiveness of his ideas that symmetry is still a widely studied philosophy. It remains as controversial, some would say heretical, today as it was during its inception. The Vanguard is afraid of Ulan Tan's ideas, so they persecute him to the point of removing him from public life. This only strengthens his philosophy, as when someone tries to ban ideas, they only increase their power. You can't destroy an idea, and taboos around them only make people even more curious about what they mean. You validate the potency of those ideas by trying to prevent others from learning them. A ghost fragment from Destiny 1 shows the Vanguard's reaction to Ulan Tan's death and the spread of the Symmetry. The Symmetry has been gaining a strong following. Ulan Tan's teachings are too dangerous, too much fear. Who knew he'd be more trouble dead than alive? We'll need to refocus our collective minds on combat. Even after his forced hermitage and death, the Symmetry continues to take up space in the minds of the Last City. The Vanguard fears the implications of the philosophy, so they try to suppress it, focus Guardians on combat rather than philosophy, but this is a losing strategy. Their traumagenic fear of the darkness blinds them to the truth, and makes them cling to the Dogma of Light until it's almost too late. The historical text concludes by discussing the implications of Tan's ideas. The knock-on effects of Ulan Tan's symmetry theory were wide-reaching. They likely extended much further than Ulan Tan himself ever intended. The idea of light and darkness as amoral interdependent forces led to some extremely inconvenient questions. Chief among them was the following: if the light and darkness were interdependent, how could one ever defeat the darkness? As Ulan Tan himself said, "I wish the light could win, as you put it, but we must accept that it's just not that simple." This became a thorny subject for the Guardians, who had spent centuries asserting their combat capabilities. Inherent in their militarism was the idea that victory, or at least self-defense, was possible. However, if their use of the light simply prompted the spontaneous generation of darkness somewhere else in the universe, then their military efforts were inherently futile. They were simply propagating an eternal stalemate at the expense of their own pain and suffering. In short, Ulan Tan's biggest sin was telling a ruling warrior class that their war was unwinnable. The Symmetry holds that the balance of light and darkness means using the light causes darkness elsewhere, and vice versa. Ulan Tan thinks a war against the paracausal force of darkness is unwinnable because it would also be a war on the paracausal force of light, the very weapon Guardians use in combat. The Ascendant warrior government of the Vanguard wanted a war they could win. They wanted to destroy the thing that enacted the trauma of the collapse on humanity. So hearing that this isn't possible, that they cannot wipe darkness from the universe completely, is hard to hear. They have a hostile reaction because they want to feel safe, free from the thing that hurt them. This is partly why Destiny's story begins with the Dogma of Light. The Dogma of Light is the moral framework most Guardians use to see the universe universe prior to the events of the Light and Darkness Saga. They embrace the Gardener's philosophy, unlimited growth and a gentle kingdom ringed in spears, protected from the inherent evil of darkness. This is defined in opposition to the Winnower's idea that inhabitants of the universe must take what they can from each other in order to prove they deserve to continue living. As we will see shortly, humanity is initially wrong about the nature of the collapse, as it wasn't the darkness who destroyed humanity, but a voice within the darkness, the Witness and its Black Fleet. As the Light and Darkness Saga begins with the Dogma of Light, it ends with what I call the Dogma of Darkness, the natural inverse of the Dogma of Light, its antithesis. This philosophy is championed by the primary antagonist of the saga, the Witness. The Witness used to be a species of beings called the Precursors, blessed by the Traveler's light. They worship the Traveler as a god they call the Gardener. Like humanity, the Traveler gave the Precursors a golden age of many miracles using its light. However, after millennia of worshipping the light, they become disillusioned with the Gardener, as it provides power and life but not guidance on how to use its gifts. Many Precursors misuse the light for evil, like humanity's warlords. This causes the Precursors much frustration. They want guidance, but their Gardener remains silent.
We too once looked to the silent God for purpose. But all he could offer was more life, void of meaning.
The Precursors can't cope with having to find their own way and meaning, desiring someone else to do that work for them. So they seek out the Veil, hoping to create meaning with the Traveler's antithesis.
Their scholars discovered that the Gardener shared a connection with another entity among the stars. They called it the Veil, and when they found it, they arrived to claim it. They already knew much about the light, how it could bend the laws of the universe and create life. But they came to realize that it could bring ruin just as easily. The cosmic events it set in motion could wipe out entire civilizations in a heartbeat, without reason. And so they saw the light, not as a source of prosperity, but of unfettered chaos. By studying the Veil, they came to know the darkness. A power that was shaped by thought and consciousness. And in the darkness, they found the means to carve away the chaos of existence, to calcify it into a final shape. Eternal and perfected.
The Precursors begin to see the light as tyrannical, a disorderly power that they cannot control, so they begin to fear it, wanting to live in an orderly universe, one that's safe and predictable, and devoid of unexpected events. In this pursuit, the Precursors find the means to create this final shape via the Veil. The Precursors' story continues.
They brought the Veil back to the Gardener in an attempt to strengthen their connection. There, they could reshape reality itself. The Gardener would not allow it, and so it fled their world. But they would not be deterred. Having witnessed the truth in the darkness, they used its binding power to merge themselves into the salvation they craved.
Not wanting to submit itself to the final shape the Precursors desire, the Gardener flees, abandoning its former disciples. This causes greater psychological trauma for the Precursors, their very god abandoning them. So the Precursors try to create a new god, the Witness. They annihilate themselves by exuviating every conscious mind from their species into one, the being that would become known as the Witness. The goal behind this exuviation is to create meaning the precursors cannot find individually, hoping that their final shape will be a purpose worth living for. The Witness explains,
Your traveler had no tolerance for such vision. And we had no tolerance for its ambivalence. We would force purpose from it, driven by a single, immutable will. So we called our doubts fear, anything that separated us, that clouded our intent, thus becoming one in darkness.
The Witness is the result of the precursors trying to force meaning into existence. They cannot accept the traveler's lack of meaning, so they try to become the meaning they desire, a collective with a single-minded purpose and vision. The precursors and later the Witness destroy dissenting voices, crushing and oppressing them, because they want to have a unified understanding of the universe, a single final shape. They become a cult personified in a single body. The purpose that drives this Witness is to bring order to the universe and winnow the garden into a single unchanging shape. To bring about this final shape, the Witness goes on a galactic crusade, attacking every species blessed by the Gardener's light until the god flees, reenacting the trauma of being abandoned by its god upon the universe. The Witness acts with malice towards light-blessed species out of an extreme hateful jealousy that the Gardener would choose someone else after abandoning the precursors. This path of destruction is designed to winnow the garden, reducing chaos and entropy, popping bubble societies of stability surrounded by chaos, so that the entire universe can be winnowed into a single and orderly final shape. The Winnower's philosophy is a central component of the Dogma of Dark. Unveiling casts the Gardener and Winnower as two sides of the cosmic war for the fate of the universe. This allegory naturally creates confusion about the Winnower and Witness are the same. The Witness rejects this idea and asserts another.
You call us Winnower. We are not. But the first knife clutched in its hand. Gods forged us both. But they cannot tell the knife what she carved.
The Witness claims the title of First Knife, meaning they are the tool their god, the Winnower, uses to shape the garden of the universe, an implement that can cut unruly weeds and petals away to carve the garden into a final shape. The Witness believes that the Gardener and Winnower created the knife as they shaped the universe's garden, giving rise to the Witness, but that they cannot tell the first knife what shape to carve, because only those who inhabit the universe can create its future, echoing the idea that Guardians create their own fate. The Witness believes that it has free will to shape the universe via paracausal darkness. They assert via the Dogma of Darkness that the chaos and entropy of the light is an illness that must be purged from the universe by calcifying it into an unchanging, final shape. When interpreting the actions of the Witness and its precursors, the Vanguard describes the final shape in the following way: Ido, dissecting, reassembling, taking, merging. All those things point towards what the Witness sees as the final shape. It is not simple destruction, the march of entropy, the ruined garden. It seeks compression, the combination of a chosen past and limitless future into a perfect forever, a state of being that cannot be anything else, because it is everything it could be. Mara, taxidermy. The Vanguard rejects this horrifying potential future for the cosmos and organizes a coalition to prevent the final shape by any means necessary. They don't wish to live in a universe where growth, change, and surprise are impossible. This would take away the essence of life and hope for the future humanity receives from the Traveler. The Witness sees its final shape as salvation, and light as evil, because of its traumatic experiences with the Precursor's god, the Gardener. It goes on a galactic crusade, forcing the traveler to flee from every subsequent civilization it blesses with the light, recreating its trauma 1,000-fold. When the traveler refuses to flee from humanity during the collapse, it forces the witness to enact its endgame, delayed only by the cunning of Savathun, hiding the veil. The Dogma of Dark, like the Dogma of Light, is fundamentally a trauma response. This explanation of the Dogma of Dark is a summary of a much larger conversation about the philosophy of winnowing and the final shape. I made a 6-hour video unpacking it in extensive detail that will be linked in the description if you're interested. In order to defeat the witness, humanity realizes they need to use knowledge from both Sister Light and Brother Dark, prompting them to take a middle path. A dialectic considers two opposing ideas, a thesis and antithesis, then synthesizes them together, arriving at a more true conclusion than the original positions. The symmetry is a dialectical synthesis, a duality of paracausal light and darkness both being able to be used by humanity for moral ends, fusing the thesis of the Dogma of Light and the antithesis of the Dogma of Darkness. Starting in Beyond Light, major characters begin to question the Dogma of Light and move to accept Ulan Tan's symmetry, the ideological thesis underpinning the entire Light and Darkness saga. This change begins in earnest with the acquisition of stasis and the return of the Witness's Black Fleet to Sol. Eris Morn leads the charge, writing letters to enemies and allies about stasis and the darkness. She seeks to convince the Vanguard to drop their Dogma of Light and create a coalition willing to use tools from Sister Light and Brother Dark. Her letter to Warlock Vanguard Ikora Rey reads, "The Darkness's arrival ushers in a new age, and with it, the revelation of stasis. We must seize this opportunity before it is too late. This collapse now escalates, our enemies' agendas advance, and we are losing. The Vanguard has played its part in bringing us to this stage, but Zavala is stalwart and far too stringent in his ways. He will never permit us to wield darkness in service of the light. I know this journey into darkness is dangerous and unprecedented. You and I know few have tried and even fewer have lived. We will become the exception. I have touched darkness and seen its plans for us. Do not trust it or its messages of peace and salvation. Stasis is not a gift. It is a tool, one that can be molded to fit our needs, and I have seen how to manipulate it for our gain. The surge of power can be overwhelming and tempting to give into, but my will is stronger and brighter than the darkest of nights. We can win, Ikora, if we wield this tool correctly. We can prevent being overcome from attacks on all fronts. Nothing will dare stand against us when we command the dark and the light. This is an opportunity to find meaning and purpose the Vanguard hasn't provided. Even though stasis is a gift from the Witness itself, Eris sees that it's a neutral force. She believes that it's merely a tool, one the Witness seeks to influence humanity with, but one that can be used against it for the Vanguard's ends. Zavala, Vanguard commander and leader of all Titans, represents the old ways and conservative principles surrounding the darkness. The collapse was caused by the darkness, so darkness must be evil. Eris's ability to master stasis and maintain control of her own will is powerful evidence against this dogma. Eris knows that Ikora, the leader of all warlocks, is interested in exploring new ideas to understand them, so she begs for a blessing to explore what power can be found in darkness to stop the Witness. Eris's next letter is to Mara Sov, Queen of the Awoken. Eris writes, "Before word reaches you that Eris Morn has been compromised, I will tell you myself. I am fighting the darkness using darkness itself. It is vital to me that you know beyond any doubt that I am of sound mind and body, and our agreement stands. While I use darkness to combat it, my focus remains steady. I acknowledge there is great anger in me. I know the darkness would sooner exploit my rage than grant me serenity. I will not dishonor our friendship with lies. It is hard to control my emotions. I feel the temptation to give in. I urge you not to condemn me. You know what I have seen, what I have been through. I am not one for reckless abandon. Though this may seem a last resort, I have unveiled a great potential for us all. Mara offers a unique perspective as the Awoken are born of both light and darkness, so she, above everyone else, should understand the benefit of balance. Eris preemptively writes to her powerful Awoken ally, a relationship forged in opposition to the Taken King, to admit to using the darkness. At this point in the story, the taboo against using the darkness remains incredibly strong, as evidenced by the lore regarding the Dredgens. Some of the most infamous human characters, including Dredgen Yor, are believed to be corrupted by the darkness, making them turn to evil. Accusations of dark corruption would be powerful ways to potentially sever relationships, which is why Eris preemptively reaches out to Mara. She knows that the Vanguard's relationship with the Awoken, and particularly their queen, will be an important one to protect humanity from the Witness. After Eris acquires stasis from the artifact in Shadowkeep, there are rumors and fears that it will corrupt her. Above everyone, the most afraid of this outcome is the Exo-Stranger, Elsie Bray. Eris writes to her asking for support, discussing how the darkness has empowered humanity's enemies, but that controlling it and exerting will over it like Oryx does the Taken could allow humanity to protect themselves. Elsie Bray has power over stasis but fears it after witnessing the Vanguard corrupted by it in an alternate timeline, the Dark Future. Eris needs Elsie on her side. She knows that Elsie sees the Symmetry is true and would destroy those corrupted by the darkness. Eris makes a compelling argument, which Elsie agrees to during the events of Beyond Light, where she helps Guardians learn stasis without becoming enthralled by its power. Eris's most insightful letter is to famed warlock and contrarian Osiris. Eris writes, "We have been manipulated from all sides. Savathun has played the darkness as an instrument of deceit, while the Vanguard has used the light to blind us. There was power in between, kept from our grasp. No longer. I have allied with those branded unsavory, and have taken the power the darkness holds to oppose it. It cannot oppress that which it does not control. For so long we have clung to the light, denying the strength offered by the dark. By using stasis, we will end this war. We see this contest for what it truly is, a game played by our adversaries, and we have been the pawns. We are pawns no more." Eris knows Osiris loves to question everything and is interested in the ultimate truth. She says something potentially heretical to the Vanguard, that the Vanguard has used the light to blind, controlling Guardians with the promise of a common enemy, a perfect elemental evil, the darkness. However, real life is often more complicated than narratives of good versus evil, and Eris sees through the Vanguard's manipulations, despite her close relationship with its leaders. She knows there is good to be found in the dark, as she has used Hive magic against the Hive to great effect, killing the figurehead of their pantheon, Oryx the Taken King. Eris seeks to do the same with stasis, fighting the Witness using its own tools, finding balance between light and darkness. Eris diffuses the rumors about dark corruption by writing a letter to all Guardians after building a coalition that uses stasis. This serves as the final piece of the puzzle, informing all, even those unwilling to use stasis themselves, of the new, more balanced status quo. Eris writes, "Guardians, discontent and skepticism permeate our allies and corrode our bonds. I am certain the rumors that circulate in the tower have found their way to you. Eris Morn has been compromised, corrupted by the darkness. You and I know that could not be further from reality. You have stood by me, and we have been empowered, enlightened, and vivified. We have struck a balance. There is much that you are already aware of. You have seen how the darkness does not seek to subjugate, as the light does not. They are tools. They are choices. They are made to be commanded and controlled. This is clear now. As long as we are together, we will be unstoppable. We can recover what has been stolen from us and procure retribution for that which is irreparable. We finally have control over the darkness and can use it against those who seek to destroy us. All of us now have the means to persevere and win this war. Stasis provides an answer to where we have fallen short previously. Use this power, with me, to abolish our foes and prevent what our forebearers could not. The next collapse is here, and we must abandon our previous misconceptions of right and wrong. You are aware of the stakes, so I will leave you with a word of warning. The new collapse did not come from the darkness alone. It comes from all around. It comes from within, and the assault has already begun. This campaign is far from over, so there is much to prepare for. We will be the masters of our fates once more. I cannot wage this war alone. I need you, all of you. I know what I ask, for you to face the unknown. Use forces beyond our comprehension. This is a world of uncertainty, yet it remains clear. Wielding the darkness with righteous intent will be our true salvation. Will we unite? Guardians receive Eris's message well. Even Zavala changes his mind about stasis after seeing Guardians use it to defeat Aramis and House Salvation on Europa. The Vanguard rejects the Dogma of Light and goes into the second collapse with a new tool, Darkness, alongside the light. The second half of Ulan Tan's heresy is the implication that not only the darkness could be used for good, but that the light could be used for evil. This comes to the fore of the story in Witch Queen, when Savathun gains a ghost and becomes a light bearer. This causes a paradigm shift within the Vanguard, as they begin to see that light is not unfailingly good.
So, you're saying Savathun was dead? Our most devious adversary, the one who nearly decimated the last city from within, was dead. And the Traveler resurrected her?
I wouldn't have believed it either, but
why would she need us to recover her memories if she never lost them in the first place?
This has to be another trick. A lie to fool us into surrendering the Traveler without a fight.
This has been the Traveler's approach from the beginning. The Books of Sorrow detail many civilizations it blessed with the light, then abandoned.
High propaganda.
The Fallen tell the same story. When the Witness and its Black Fleet came to call, the Traveler moved on to our system.
Or it sacrificed itself to save humanity from the same forces. Forces which included the Hive! After all that, why would the Traveler give our worst enemy the light?
It doesn't matter. I don't know why the Traveler gave Savathun the light. Maybe it has changed its mind about Guardians. Maybe it's not as infallible as we once believed. I don't know, and it doesn't matter. Because I'm here to protect humanity. And if Savathun takes the Traveler, we lose our light, along with any hope for surviving the Witness's return. So, whatever it takes to stop this heist, we will do.
The Vanguard has their fate tested, and this time it's Ikora who leads the charge. She sees that Savathun is using the light for dastardly ends, and desires to protect humanity, even if that means using the darkness against light bearers. They stop Savathun from stealing the Traveler and sealing it away in her throne world, so that nobody else can use the light. Savathun is defeated, but her ghost Imaru escapes. The Vanguard locks away Savathun's body so that she can't be resurrected on their watch. Savathun is eventually resurrected with Imaru held hostage, so that the Vanguard can use her as an ally in the fight against the Witness, without allowing her to slip free and betray them. A ghost is the ultimate collateral against a light bearer. They can't be resurrected without it. Savathun offers a different perspective on the symmetry. The oceans of fundament, the translucent waves reflect the surface. Dip your hand and it comes up trailing liquid clear as glass. Dive deep, and the weight of it mounts upon itself, exponential and inescapable. And in those depths is pressure and darkness, and all that is becomes stripped down to simply that which is essential to survive. An elegant thing. You may see why we loved the deep. And what of the sky, the delicate arch of the firmament, the color of the ocean reflecting back at itself? Soar high enough and far enough, dodge enough bait stars, enough membranous predators floating lightly on the wind, and there too is darkness. What may survive in that empty space between stars? Only that which has clawed its way up. The sky should have reached harder if it wanted us. Now I am abundant with light. It fills the empty hollow where a worm once burrowed. The trifling matter of a restoration of memory has made little difference. My nature is coded into my morph, from the chitin of my thorax to the scales of my wings. If the sky and the deep were so different, should not rebirth from darkness to light have made of me something sweet and gentle? Don't bother to answer. We both know already. Savathun and the Hive are forged in darkness, in the deep of fundament, making a bargain with the parasitic worm gods for godlike power over the darkness. Savathun excises her worm and attains a ghost and the light. If the Dogma of Light was true, if the light cannot be used for evil, resurrection would change Savathun, taking her Machiavellian nature and converting it to one of kindness and benevolence. However, becoming a light bearer doesn't change her. She retains her cunning character and nature, proving that light is not universally good. Its use is relative to the wielder. The Lucent Brood's birth is the ultimate evidence that the symmetry is the truth. Imaro offers a different perspective. As a ghost, even Savathun's ghost, yeah, I think I have a little more authority to speak on light than some of you chuckleheads. Listen, it's pretty clear by now that whatever is evil is what you humans happen to be fighting against at the time. Don't think I don't admire the grift, pal, but it's less entertaining from this side. We had that good old-fashioned time with the Hive used the darkness, so darkness is evil. Except now, it's the Hive used the light, so maybe light is also evil? Yeah, let's take good and evil out of it for a minute. Me and this crew of ghosts decided we were going to give the traveler's better choice a real shot. Worm's gone, light remains. It shines on what's there. So what did the Hive do? They didn't all develop a burgeoning case of rugged individualism the second they were reforged in light. And the light didn't burn the dark out of them, or whatever nonsense the Praxic Order has been cooking up. They kept being Hive. It's just about choice. Everyone's got one, always. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, not finding a choice acceptable isn't the same as not having one. Hive had a choice even under worm management. But hey, a final death isn't exactly an alternative a lot of them would want to pick. What I'm getting at is that the Traveler made a choice too. Chose to uplift the Hive just as it did the humans. Chose to stay when it could have fled. I respect that. Even now, I'm carrying out its will across the divide from you lot. And what are the Lucent Hive choosing now? I'm sure not telling. But whatever it might be, it's a whole different ball of hemolymph than your facile dichotomy of the past. And good or evil, they still get to choose for themselves, just like I did, just like the Traveler did. Imaro sees his choice to resurrect Savathun and the Lucent Brood as ordained by the Traveler. The Traveler originally would have chosen the Hive on Fundament, but the Witness and the Black Fleet claim them first via the Worm Bargain, as revealed by the memory of Savathun's worm. The Traveler feels cornered by the impending second collapse, and seeks out Savathun, creating the Lucent Brood in the hopes that they will be able to save it from the Witness's advance. Whether this was necessary is unclear, but Imaro is not wrong about humanity's so-called ideological grift. Whoever the Vanguard fights is considered evil. It's the Vanguard's manipulation Eris mentions, blinding everyone by aiming weapons of mass destruction, an army of light bearers, at whoever needs destroying, claiming the new villain of the week is the greatest evil imaginable. This is an ineffective and cruel philosophy that makes you prone to being deceived, which is why it's good that Beyond Light and Witch Queen changed the Vanguard from within, showing that the universe's morality is relative, not universal. Dark can be used for good and light can be used for evil. Ikora meditates on this change and looks back on the Grimoire card for the darkness. The Symmetry, a faction considered a dangerous fringe group at the time of Ulan Tan's life. While he and the Symmetrists seem more likely now than before to have comprehended some essential truth of the universe, at the time their beliefs were justly considered alarming. Little wonder that other opinions on light and dark were more attractive, with walls beset from all directions and few allies to be found. While none was official Vanguard doctrine, the Praxic Creed and Pujari position were much more in line with the attitudes of the Tower and city at large. The Praxic Creed holds that the nature of the darkness is not worth investigating. One should focus on combating the darkness rather than knowing it. The Acataleptic cause holds that darkness cannot be understood at all. The two are convenient bedfellows, and we long held the notion that to study the darkness was to risk being subsumed by it. I am still not wholly convinced that these theories are inherently wrong, only that those of our allies who have succeeded in that study are both skilled and fortunate. The Warlock Pujari's position, on the other hand, holds that darkness has a moral valence, that it is an actualization of evil. We have been forced to wrestle with such moral standing again and again these past several years. Purity of purpose compels. To see evil and defend those who cannot defend themselves is righteous, but to assume that this act of defense confers righteousness upon us and villainy upon our opponents is a fallacy. It is a slippery slope. I have come to believe this mindset must now be discarded. Pujari's dreams and comprehensions of darkness should, in fact, be attributed to the being known as the Witness. The Pujari position said that darkness is inherently evil. The use of stasis and strand against the Witness eminently prove this position false. Even the idea that the Witness is purely malicious is probably a bit too far. Its actions are evil, but they do come from an understandable but flawed desire to protect from chaos and create meaning, even if this results in the worst tyranny the universe has seen. The Praxic Creed teaches that the darkness is not worth understanding and that it must be defeated. The Acataleptic Clause teaches believers that the darkness is fundamentally impossible to understand. These ideas too are misguided. If the darkness couldn't be understood, then it would be impossible for humanity to gain enough knowledge of stasis and strand to use them for our own ends. However, this isn't the case, so we must take the Acataleptic Clause as false. The Praxic Creed has just enough subjectivity that it cannot be proven false, but I disagree with it. It's intellectually incurious to avoid understanding your enemies, especially if you want to defeat them. Understanding the Witness was the thing that allowed the Vanguard to defeat it and save the universe. Burying your head in the sand and trying to fight something without understanding it is a terrible strategy, one that will see the rest of you buried. The Praxic Order has the most difficult time accepting the use of darkness as good. Everyone has rightfully been dunking on their dogma so far, but their skepticism does come from a healthy place. They want to keep themselves and humanity safe from alien threats, which is why they create the Praxic Creed and take part in the Dogma of Light. This makes them have a hard time accepting the new paradigm of symmetry. Praxic Warlock Aunor Mahal writes, "So then, why the recent move toward acceptance of darkness as a morally neutral force? Are we expected to believe that the collapse, that all our battles against the Hive and their darkness, have been nothing more than an elaborate false flag operation? How is it that none of the enemies of humanity have, until now, come to us wielding light? It is not impossible. There, I have said it, though it leaves a bad taste in my mouth to do so. While I sincerely doubt any genuine conspiracy, I will concede that it is technically possible that nearly every enemy of humanity has simply happened to take the hand, the cosmic force that opposes the Traveler, the one force which was used to end the Golden Age and decimate humanity. Savathun is known for deception and trickery. Are we so certain that she was given the light? Truly? And even if it is true that the darkness is itself as safe as the light, that our greatest enemy had only taken it as its cloak, should we truly encourage Guardians to reach for it? A force of consciousness with the witness lingering within? From where I stand, nothing seems riskier. I have never thought that we needed to understand the darkness to defeat it. Doing so has only brought more questions and uncertainty in a time when clarity of purpose is required. I will still fight the darkness. That is of paramount importance. Perhaps, if there can be peace, the Creed can be revisited to prioritize the defeat of humanity's enemies. That time is not now. Honor stays skeptical of Savathun's acquisition of the light, in spite of the evidence that the Traveler wants to choose the Hive. This makes sense, but as a function of the Traveler's great silence, refusing to speak, merely providing its gifts of light to those it chooses, but not providing guidance. This makes it difficult for bystanders to tell if the Traveler ordains someone receiving a ghost, or whether it's possible for someone to obtain a ghost nefariously, against the Traveler's wishes. That ambiguity is at the heart of the Traveler's place within the story. A silent god, ripe for projection of intent and emotion, one which fuels the Vanguard's philosophy for centuries prior to the Light and Darkness Saga. The evidence points towards ghosts being fated to choose a single person that is preordained from the moment of the ghost's birth, but it's hard to say how flexible this choosing is. We ultimately have no way to tell for sure, which allows the doubt about Savathun and her lucent brood to linger. Honor also is skeptical that the darkness can be good, as many of humanity's enemies have wielded the dark against us. The Hive, the Taken, the Vex, the Scorn, and the Black Fleet. However, there's evidence that the Black Fleet doesn't care whether a species it attacks uses the darkness. In Spiral, we learn that the Ecumene, one of the civilizations famously destroyed by the Hive in the Books of Sorrow, built their civilization using the darkness. The Witness's war is not purely against the light, but the entire universe, any society that seeks to build a bubble of stability surrounded by chaos, a gentle kingdom ringed in spears. It preaches the dogma of darkness, but attacks other civilizations built both in light and dark. If the dogma of dark also attacks civilizations forged in darkness, the darkness cannot be purely good or evil. The darkness simply is. Even Honor admits that the darkness may not be purely evil, and believes the Praxic Creed may need to be modified to say that humanity's enemies need to be defeated, not the darkness itself. They refuse to do this during a time of conflict and will only do so during a time of peace. Returning to Ikora, she concludes her discussion of the darkness by examining the symmetry and the last city's history with the philosophy. To acknowledge the symmetry at the time of their origin would have required a systemic change in our approach to darkness, something impossible at the time, with the Dark Age still haunting the hard-won progress of the City Age. To insist that darkness, our enemy, would be eternally undefeatable, required to exist forever by virtue of our light? Unthinkable then. Now we begin to accept that with light there is darkness, and with darkness there is light. It almost seems a comfort now to think that the two forces require each other, even in the depths of these uncharted waters, when the Traveler is injured and the fight for survival more critical than it ever has been. It is on us that our future hinges, not something incomparable and unreachable. Light and darkness will continue. Whether or not we will do so is up to us. We must make it so. That is all that matters. The City Age is a time of fear. The last city has just been built from the ashes of the collapse, and humanity begins to recover. It's a fragile time for humans who seek to rebuild in the face of immense alien danger on all sides. The Dogma of Light serves a purpose, hardening humanity against their enemies, so that they can protect themselves from all threats. It's easier to fight someone you view as truly evil rather than partially evil, after all. However, in the face of the witness's return to soul, the Dogma of Light becomes outdated and needs to be discarded in favor of the Symmetry. The Vanguard needs to understand the darkness in order to protect humanity and their allies from the Witness, because the Witness was forged in darkness via the Veil. Humanity rallies, building a resilient coalition to defeat the Witness and protect the Traveler, as the Traveler seeks to protect humanity by giving them ghosts and the light. They return the favor and seek to rid the universe of the Black Fleet's corruption. Ikora meditates on the nature of light, darkness, and their relationship to memory, seeing it as explained by the iterated Prisoner's Dilemma. The Prisoner's Dilemma is a game where two players have the option to cooperate or defect. If both players cooperate, they both receive a light sentence. If they both defect, they both receive a moderate sentence. However, if one player defects and the other cooperates, the player who defected gets no sentence, while the other player gets a harsh sentence. If both parties cooperate, the global outcome is better for the pair. However, these prisoners are pitted against each other and cannot coordinate their moves, so they must anticipate each other's moves to try to create the best outcome for themselves. This game tells us about the nature of human behavior, revealing whether humans are generally trusting of their opponents or distrusting. In the iterated version, two people are playing games of the Prisoner's Dilemma repeatedly against each other. It's more complicated than the simple zero-sum nature of the Prisoner's Dilemma, and allows for more complex strategies based on the behavior of your opponent, using the information from their previous turns. Ikora explains this via an analogy of two villages who can either cooperate or attack each other. You know they will remember how you treat them. This is the value of remembering, using knowledge of your opponent's past behavior to influence future choices. The most human strategy is some variant of tit for tat. Tend to cooperate, but do unto others as they do to you. Start nothing, but if you are hit back hard. So you punish the other village for attacking. You counterattack. A cycle of war begins. The only way out is a moment of grace, cooperation, spontaneously and for no reason, after 20 years of war. This is the value of forgetting. Forget they hurt you. Do what's right. This is why the light wipes away memory. It strikes away the pain of the past to break the pattern, to create the possibility of grace. This is why the dark remembers. We need to remember why we were hurt, so we can avoid being hurt again. We need the darkness to avoid being preyed upon by those who see light as an opportunity to feed. But we need the light too. The light is the hope of grace through the grace of hope. Humanity and their allies need both light and darkness to keep themselves safe. If they only used the light, they could be preyed upon by beings of malice like the Witness. If they only used the darkness, they would be deaf to the possibility of forgiveness and stuck in eternal war like the Witness. This dialectical approach to light and darkness, using both paracausal forces in symmetry, is the best strategy on the battlefield of the cosmic war, allowing humanity to remain safe with the possibility of a better future, a gentle kingdom ringed in spears. Kind and not seeking to start violence, but willing to defend themselves if need be, but also willing to forget if it's needed to stop the cycle of violence from consuming everyone. After the Symmetry's harshest critics are brought into the fold, a true philosophical coalition for the Symmetry is created, transforming it into the dominant philosophy of the Vanguard in the battle against the Witness. Above all, the coalition seeks to protect the Traveler from the Witness, as they owe it a great debt for their ghosts and second chances at light, which is exactly what Ulan Tan preaches. Some adherents of the Symmetry have a negative reaction to Ulan Tan being proven right, and his philosophy becoming the dominant one in the Vanguard coalition. Listen, that's the thing, isn't it? No one wants to listen. They only pay attention once you're dead. Ulan Tan was the greatest mind of his time, and so, of course, he was wholly overlooked. And now that he's gone, you parrot his ideas like they're your own. I hear you describe him as he must have been in life. His bright face, his shining bond. Every tile he stepped on turned to gold, and everyone sang his praises in the streets. Jackals. He was threadbare and haggard. He was mocked for his meandering rants. You've dug up his grave to chew on his bones. You've twisted his words into something false, something yours. There's no substance to you. You preach the sermon, but you will not, could not, live the teaching. Not as I have. This is not what his genius deserved. The Symmetry's original adherents are rightfully angry that only after Ulantan's death is he afforded the respect he deserves. He dies poor and forced into hermitage, branded a heretic for daring to challenge the Dogma of Light. He's proven right and sees the deeper truth behind the Black Fleet and the collapse, but at immense personal cost. History vindicates him, but Ulantan would never live to see this. The way he's treated is a tragedy and a cautionary tale against dogmatic paradigms. Intellectual curiosity should be rewarded, even if it brings new and uncomfortable ideas that challenge the status quo. Ulantan knew and lived the fundamental truth that every dogma is worth questioning. Even the Traveler, the progenitor of light and creator of light bearers, embraces the Symmetry in the end. After entering the pale heart of the Traveler in the final shape, players gain abilities that manifest the philosophy of Symmetry into gameplay. Prismatic. Ghost explains.
The line between light and dark is... it's gone. It's gone. Guardian, you fused light and dark into harmony. How?
Prismatic is a new gift from the Traveler, changed by the Witness's dark corruption of its pale heart, allowing Guardians to transcend the barrier between light and darkness, using them in Symmetry. The gameplay power of Prismatic being greater than most monochromatic subclasses reinforces the philosophy of Symmetry by creating ludonarrative resonance, harmony between story and gameplay. The marriage of light and dark is the perfect ideological and gameplay choice to challenge the Witness's Dogma of Dark and fully reject humanity's old Dogma of Light. Even for players unfamiliar with the underlying philosophies, it's plain to see that embracing light and darkness for good is the ultimate praxis in the battle against the Witness. This is an expansion of the Gardener's gentle kingdom ringed in spears to include the darkness as one such spear, protecting the bubble of stability from the chaos outside it. The Vanguard and Guardian build a coalition to excise the Witness from the Traveler and prevent its apocalyptic final shape. The coalition includes former enemies and our greatest allies. Defeating the Witness's Black Fleet proves that coalitions built by free will are stronger than coalitions built by dogma, force, and tyranny. For a glorious moment, the Cabal, Elixni, Humanity, Guardians, and even the Lucent Brood unite to destroy the Witness once and for all.
Defenders of Soul, hear me now! Moments ago, one fire team infiltrated the Witness's monolith and shattered its hold on the Traveler's light. Their courage bought us one last chance to finish this. But the Witness still lives. The Guardians and their ghosts will face the Witness, while we eliminate the remainder of its forces. Our final chance at freedom lies on that field. This enemy has taken so much from us all. Elixni, Cabal, Awoken, Humanity, Hive. The Witness started this war long ago. But now, we end it.
A symmetry of paracausal light and darkness rises as the Coalition defeats the Witness and its Black Fleet, saving the universe from its tyranny and preventing yet another collapse. The key theme of the Light and Darkness Saga is dialectics. Only in the synthesis of the dogmas of light and darkness can peace and prosperity be achieved. If you embrace the darkness to the exclusion of light, you become the witness. But if you embrace the light to the exclusion of darkness, you become humanity's warlords. Either option will result in your eventual destruction. Both light and darkness can be used for good or evil. They are amoral paracausal forces. Morality lies in the behavior of the wielder. Dialectics do not mean that the correct path is that of an enlightened centrist, a sitter on the wall refusing to take a side. In a dialectical view, there is still evil like the witness. Dialectics merely ask us to understand where the witness's dogma comes from and see that there is some truth to it, even if the whole is wrong. It's about rejecting rigid, inflexible, black and white thinking. The Light and Darkness Saga tells the story of the Vanguard's rejection of the dogmas of light and dark, embracing dialectics, moderation, and balance. Zavala's character arc from stalwart defender of the light, raging against the forces of darkness, to using stasis against the witness after losing his ghost, exemplifies this theme perfectly. Prismatic is the culmination of this theme, allowing guardians to wield light and darkness in concert. In the end, synthesis defeats dogma, the coalition destroys the witness, and the symmetry proves itself the ultimate truth. Thank you to my channel members for helping make this video possible. Members get access to a bunch of perks, including early access to videos, exclusive bonus videos, their name in the credits, a Discord role, and more. If that sounds worth it to you, consider clicking the join button below. Above all though, I would like to thank you for watching.